Welcome all to today's ASRG World webinar. ASRG stands for Automotive Security Researcher Group. We have the 12th of August 2021 and we are streaming from Stuttgart in Germany. Thank you for being with us. My name is Dirk Targoni and I am ASRG Stuttgart lead. The Automotive Security Researcher Group is now nearly 4 years old and we are a non-profit organization which provides a platform for the automotive security industry, as well as related academics or organizations to share knowledge, build powerful networks, and valuable collaborations. This community is for you, and it is based on volunteer support. If you want to know more details about ASRG, please check our website at www.asrg.io. Maybe you have an idea for a nice project or look for partners to realize it. You would like to start your own location. You have an idea about a service ASRG could provide to you, or you simply know a great organization which could be partner with ASRG. We are open to hear each idea you have in mind and would like to discuss how ASRG can support it. Don't hesitate and get in touch with us. You quickly can send us an email with your thoughts to hello@asrg.io. So it's now enough from my side, and I don't want to keep you tortured anymore, because I'm sure you are waiting very curiously for our main presentation. Like every time, in case you have questions during this presentation, please write into the chat window. After the session, we will have some more minutes for questions and answers. And now it is my pleasure to welcome Eliel Mulumba, Security Consulting Team Lead at Accenture, and Michal Petran, Senior Delivery Manager, Cyber Fusion Center Prague, also at Accenture. Today, they will show us Accenture's security cyber garage. And it is a very practical topic. And now I would like to hand over to you guys. The virtual stage is yours.
Yeah, many thanks. Hello together. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're joining around the globe. It's a pleasure to be here. And special thanks to the host, to Julian, Dirk, and Sven for the incredible work that you are doing with this community and all the effort that you're putting in the preparation and organization of those regular webinars. Especially also for creating, shaping, and developing this group of cybersecurity guardians that is coming together on a weekly or monthly touch base in order to exchange on security topics, to share experiences, to bring quality into the discussion. And we're really happy to be here. And we truly believe that sharing knowledge will enrich everyone with more knowledge and help us actually to face sophisticated cybersecurity challenges that every one of us is facing, companies are facing, and also we are facing in order to improve the work that we do in order to raise the cybersecurity level. So thank you. Maybe we want to go to the next slide. So we are still in a pandemic situation, which means that we do not have the possibility to meet each other on the ground and have this personal experience and change, but we are still happy to have this virtual platform to still be engaged. And we want to give you a chance to actually see the faces of the voices that you will hear in the next minutes and in the next hour. So my name is Eliel Mulumba, handing over to Michal for the short intro and then taking over again.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Eliel, for the introduction. My name is Michal Petran. As mentioned, I work for Accenture for the past 3 years in Prague in our Cyber Fusion Center in the area of automotive security. Before that, I started my professional career for top 10 tier 1 developer. So my background is actually from ADAS system development. And for the past 3 years, I focus on cybersecurity of cars, not only passenger, but also bigger ones. Eliel, back to you.
Thank you for that, Michal. So my name is Eliel Mulumba. I'm cybersecurity team lead for the ASRG region, which is actually Austria, Switzerland, and Germany. Almost completing my 4 years with Accenture Security, and have been mainly working as program and project lead on cybersecurity projects in the automotive, aviation, and software industry with focus on ZM, Security Operations Center, risk assessment, and supply chain security. And it's a pleasure for us to be here today. Thank you for the next slide. So we have prepared following agenda that we want to guide you through during this afternoon webinar. So at the beginning, we want to give you a short introduction about Accenture Security as organization. So what are the services that we are offering for our clients? How are we organized? How are we clustering our clients into different industries? During the second part, we want to deep dive into the services and offerings that we do provide, especially for automotive clients, which is of big interest of today's target group. And also then deep diving into our approach for vehicle security testing that we are doing in our Cyber Fusion Center in Prague. And at the end of the webinar, we want to give you an outlook on future topics that we are willing to work on, and would like also to share a few key recommendations based on the projects that we have done in the past, based on the experience that we have done, that we want to share with the community together. And of course, feel free to raise your questions in the chat. I believe we will have enough time towards the end of the webinar to go through each of your questions as well. You. Short introduction about Accenture Security. What is important to know about Accenture itself is that we are clustering our clients into different industries. So on the one hand, it's communication, media, and technology. So you would see basically big telco companies here. You would see big media companies here, but also airplane manufacturers that are in this industry segment that we are working with. Then there's the financial services, where you typically have banks, health, and public services self-explaining. Products is probably most interesting for the group today. This is where we see our big OEMs, our tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers as well. And resources is all about energy and utilities. And we do provide actually services, security services and offerings across all those industry. Big topic right now is actually operational technology in the area of products and resources. So clients that are actually dealing with security issues in the field of industrial line, in the field of industrial supply chains, industrial value chains. So here we are actually providing guidance and services around shop floor security IT, security strategy and risk, also a topic that we are actually addressing on board member level. So here we work together closely with board members in order to define security strategies for the upcoming 3 to 5 years. So what is our security vision? What is our security governance looking like? How do we want to increase headcount in order to face today's challenges? What are the technologies and skill sets that we need within our organization? This is where we are really supporting board members. And then there's the cyber defense services. So this is typically everything in the area of security incident event management and security operations center. So we help client to build security operation centers. We help client to actually develop their security operation centers further. So trying to detect from where can we get logs, how are we correlating those logs, how are we evaluating those logs in order to take the right actions within the company to face security challenges, especially also with the help of threat intelligence methods. Then there's the applied cybersecurity services that we do provide for our clients as well. So topics that we are handling there are in the field of digital identity, privilege access management, Data protection, especially with GDPR, has gained a lot of attention in the last years. So we help our clients on data and privacy security questions there. And one of the biggest topic is cloud and infrastructure security. So before COVID, clients were thinking about going to the cloud. Since COVID, clients are going to the cloud, actually also having a multi-vendor strategy. They are going with different vendors, and they're facing security and compliance questions there as well, where we are actually helping them to find the right measures. And then there's the managed security services. So if clients say, okay, we don't want to run the SOC, so we are able to provide full end-to-end service around the security operations center, for example, doing level 1, level 2, and level 3 of incident management, and handling this completely autonomous with the client together. Thank you. So let's put our efforts of Accenture Security on a global map. So we are operating globally, providing services to more than 50 clients, a lot of them Fortune 500 clients. So we have our big cyber fusion centers in Washington, D.C., in Naples, in Tokyo, and also in Prague, where I'm sitting today. We have cyber labs in Tel Aviv and Sofia Antipolis, where we are actually working on security innovation. We have big delivery centers in Buenos Aires, Cincinnati, Sao Paulo, Manila, and Pune, where we are actually doing a lot of IT operations for our client. And of course, there are also our cyber rangers in Houston, Sydney, and Essen. And today we want to really focus on the great work that we are doing in the Czech Republic, especially there in our Cyber Fusion Center and in our Cyber Garage, where Michal and myself are sitting today. So Accenture Security, of course, also works together with partners. So we have partners that have really strong expertise when it comes to specific technologies, and we want to make use of this expertise in order to serve our clients best. So across all the services that we do provide, we also work with great partners together. I will just mention a few of them, otherwise we will run out of time, but there's Palo Alto Networks, for example, with whom we are working very close together in the field of multi-cloud security or a security operations center and OT technology. There's Nozomi, there's Microsoft, Splunk, ForgeRock, CyberArk, SafePoint, big companies that we are really working together in order to bring together really the forces of consultancy and also the forces of technology to serve our clients best. And we have been appointed as partner of the year for several times in the recent years from those companies. And also interesting to mention is that Accenture recently just had the highest score in the Forrester Wave report as a leading European cybersecurity consulting provider in 2020. Thank you for that. So let's have a deeper look into what we are doing or what offerings and services we do provide for the automotive industry. And the first thing that is really important to know, what is really driving us and what is our ambition? It's really to implement our vision. And our vision is to become a trusted security partner today to secure the smart, connected, and automated mobility tomorrow from unauthorized access. So this is what is really driving all of our teams around the globe on a daily basis. So how are we actually looking to cybersecurity within the automotive industry? Important to know is that we are putting the client business in the center of all our cybersecurity efforts. So that means we need to understand the value chain, we need to understand the interplay between different departments in order to know which importance cybersecurity has and how we can do our best in order to ensure business continuity, to be business resilient, and to face cybersecurity challenges and impacts as quick as possible. So we provide a full range of cybersecurity end-to-end services through the entire automotive value chain. So that means from the beginning of the life cycle on the left-hand side in R&D, we are involved and engaged with the client to define, okay, how shall the security architecture or the security framework of our future product look like that is about to be released in the next 2-3 years. We work together if it comes also with procurement in terms of selecting also the right suppliers. So supply chain is getting more and more important because attackers are not only targeting the big companies that you might see in the Fortune 500s, but also smaller companies that are actually also contributing to this value chain, also part of the supply chain, and they're also targeted. So you need to choose wisely with whom you're working together and ensure that you're applying the same cybersecurity level that you have for your big company, also for the smaller companies that are helping you to build your product. And especially when it comes also to integration of different modules. So if we look at the car today, there are plenty of suppliers that are contributing with infotainment system, with ECUs, with other sensors to the end vehicle that the client will see at the end of the day. Smart factories also getting a lot of attention. We see already in the logistics that autonomous systems are able to actually deliver specific items from one plant to the other plant, which is also running through internet lines that we have to consider from a cybersecurity perspective to ensure that the just-in-time and just-in-sequence processes are not delayed. And when it comes to operation, the seventh step, which is the step that we will speak about today, is really the car operation itself. So car to car communication, car to X communication, vehicle to X communication. These are topics that we are dealing with in our Cyber Fusion Center in Prague and our cyber garage to really do penetration testing on cars, have key findings that we are sharing with clients in order to help them to build more resilient products at the end of the day. And services is also a big topic nowadays if it comes to firmware over the air updates, where communication is transferred from the backend of the OEM to the car itself and from the car back to the backend again, where we have also to consider a lot of cyber security questions. And this value chain today is somehow also impacted by different stakeholders and different factors. So we have competitors, for example, in the field of electromobility that have entered the market a few years ago and that haven't been on the radar 15 years ago. And they are somehow pushing big companies in the automotive industry to go to the limit. We have clients that have higher and higher expectation regarding the end product. So if you look at the car today, it has much more as base functionality than it used to be 10 years ago. So we see higher demand and higher requirement that automotive companies have to deal with as well. We see that states, for example, do launch more and more regulations than ever. So speaking about UNIC 155, 156, ISO 21434, GDPR, and other regulations that are on the horizon and that are forcing automotive companies to apply them as soon as possible with a low bandwidth and maybe also not always with the highest man capacity. And then suppliers, of course, as mentioned, they play a key role to build products at the end of the day, also playing a major part in the value chain for automotive companies. And media is also very interested if it comes to automotive companies, especially since the Dieselgate. So this is also really challenging for automotive clients to deal with that. And we believe that cybersecurity is a business enabler and plays an integral part for OEMs, but also suppliers, tier one suppliers, tier two and tier three suppliers in order to do their usual business. Because it's not the question when are we going to be targeted, it's not the question when are we going to be impacted, it's more the question how are we going to deal with that, and do we have the right measures, the right tools, the right people, the right skill set in place in order to react on such events in a certain time period accordingly while ensuring business continuity and being cyber resilient. Thank you for that. So there might be the one or the other who's saying, hey, is there really a proven evidence that there's cybersecurity challenges or that there are a lot of incidents happening? This report from Upstream from 2019 is actually answering this question. So we see that there's a rapid growth of cyber attacks in the automotive industry since 2010, especially when looking into the numbers of 2016 and 2019. We see that the number of cyber attacks in the automotive industry have increased by 6 times, which shows that there are really sophisticated attacks that they need to deal with. Cybersecurity is getting much more important than ever. Important also to run business as usual. And these are points that we are taking into consideration when accompanying our clients on the cybersecurity journey. So if we look into the different angles that are actually attacked inside a vehicle, we have also here as source the Upstream report from 2019. We see that especially there have been security vulnerabilities that have been exploited in the area of keyless entry. OBD2 port that is used for maintenance is also an area that is usually used for attackers to go through. And on the right side, we can see what have been the impact of those security vulnerabilities. So we had car theft, we have loss of car control systems, important car control systems. We have loss of control of data and personal data, and of course also service and business disruption. These are actually information that we are also working together close with our research team to really understand what is driving the market, what is happening in the market, what are the big challenges, and how can we shape our offerings accordingly in order to somehow also overcome those challenges and find the right answers. And this is what we're going to show you, especially for the connected vehicle with the work that we are doing in our cyber garage. Thank you. So let's come to our Cyber Fusion Center in Prague. So as mentioned, there are a lot of hot topics right now in the automotive industry with regards to security. There's the car sharing identity management, there's V2X communication, there's firmware over the air updates, there's product development and life cycle. So all of them are really hot topics that companies do currently work on and that are quite challenging and for which we try to find the best solution. So here in our Cyber Fusion Center in Prague, we have the strength of more than 140 cybersecurity professionals and a very diverse team of more than 30 people serving more than 50 clients and really addressing those pain points in the area of cybersecurity. And with that, I would like to hand over to Michal to guide us through the heart of today's webinar and the work that we do in our cyber garage. Thank you.
Thank you, Eliel. So exactly as you described, there are a few hot topics. You might remember from the previous slide that one of the biggest impacts, statistically, is still theft. So the intention to steal cars or property inside is still motivating the criminals. So the need for cybersecurity and for vehicle-level security testing, we see two main factors driving the need for an establishment such as our cyber garage. And that is one, the first one is an consequence of what Eliel described. Cars are becoming more and more software defined. So OEMs themselves want to build secure cars. With more and more software, we need more and more cybersecurity testing. Not only it's a OEM-driven idea. Recently, there is the UN ECE regulations being published, and it comes into power very, very soon. Next year, in 2022, cars will already need to be compliant. And as you very likely know, being compliant with the R1055 is not only a step in the product development. It's not only penetration testing at some point during your development lifecycle. It is implementing a cybersecurity management system. It is a cybersecurity engineering process to be followed, and approval for the company, as well as each individual vehicle type. So these two factors combined are driving the need for approach such as we adopted in the Cyber Garage. So what is our approach? We thought hard and came up with the attacker's path. The ISO 21434 suggests risk-driven approach, very similar to functional safety. There are many analogies that you can see in the presented process for the cybersecurity as well. Here you can see a real picture from our garage. I will accompany our journey with our research vehicle. We are registered at Tesla's cybersecurity research team. So we use this vehicle as our testing and research platform for different technologies. So as I mentioned, we are taking the attacker's approach. First of all, starting with road test, seeing the vehicle in its natural environment, investigating what functions it does in V2X communication, connectivity, interaction with other elements, being it roadside stations and cell phones, and what are the user stories. Then we'll bring the vehicle into our garage for isolation of individual communication channels. And then we start to dig deeper and deeper in identifying individual components, looking for vulnerabilities at that level. And then even deeper for component testing, we open the suspect ECUs and identify vulnerabilities at the software, firmware, and hardware level. So without further ado, let's have a look at the first step, the road test. Seeing the vehicle in its natural environment requires a few things to be aware of. The testing is suggested to be done even before the homologation process. We have already set up a legal way how to do road tests with vehicles that we modify during the testing and for pre-production, which gives us the possibility to do public road tests with the actual infrastructure and then focus on identify the communication channels and things that we want to test further in our garage. So once we are aware of the vehicle operations and functions, we take the vehicle into our garage. In our garage, we can set up men in the middle for individual interfaces, for satellite navigation system, for cellular. We can connect to the vehicle diagnostic port, the OBD, as Eliel mentioned, and identify other interfaces that are interesting for an attacker. USB ports, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and scan the attack surface to identify weak points. Then, once we identify the weak points, we identify also the components that might be vulnerable and responsible for the function. We take them to our laboratory and disassemble the car. Dig deeper. In this particular picture, you can see our test that followed the CAN bus and the Ethernet network inside the car, identified components for vehicle entry with the end sensors and the main controller responsible for getting access to the car. And then we took it apart, you see at the PCB level, brought into the laboratory, and be subject to further testing. In our garage, in our laboratory, then we open the component and test it at a hardware and software level. During the development, there of course are debug ports, maybe forgotten test points. So we inspect each individual component, try to extract contents of memories and firmwares, try to convince the device to do things that it's not designed to, as well as analyze the signals and subjecting the ECU to inputs that it's not used to during normal operation. With this, we can extract potentially secrets that are not only valuable for the onboard security, for the car itself. In many of the ECUs, you need to store credentials for the vehicle backend. Therefore, the impact might not be only the vehicle itself, but also the whole fleet, which makes the impact much, much more important. As a next step, once we discover a weakness, a vulnerability, it is important to understand how difficult it is to actually exploit it. So as part of our approach, we always try to develop a proof of concept for each vulnerability to demonstrate what the attacker really can do. And that requires reverse engineering of a extracted firmware. That requires fuzzing and testing on the vehicle bus to get diagnostic access to individual ECUs. Desoldering chips, changing the contents of flash memories, and also fuzzing on radio frequency channels. Very popular feature nowadays is the keyless entry. The radio frequency channel is a physical layer that's very hard to secure, or hard or expensive, that is. So I'm sure you're familiar with the relay and replay attacks for keys. And now the question we always ask, and we try to demonstrate, what is the window of opportunity? What does the legitimate user need to do for the attacker to be able to abuse a weakness? Same goes with man in the middle on GSM. 4G and LTE networks are quite secure, but maybe the telematic units are supporting also older technologies, maybe 2G. So generally, we believe it is important to show proof of concept for as many findings as we have from the previous steps. Now, to give you an idea of the most common findings we have seen over the past 3 years in vehicle security, testing various ECUs and a few vehicles. I already mentioned the radio frequency key fob, relay and replay attack. Some of the key fobs used a, say, obsolete technology that can be simulated. Some of them were subject to relay attack, just making the car think that the key is closer than it really is. And we discovered one of the inconsistency in approach to secure design, and that is actual physical security of the car, where on paper the EE architecture of a car can nicely separate the dirty and the clean zone, separated by a secure gateway and a very thoroughly designed separation process. So even if an attacker gets control over the telematics box, he or she cannot send the appropriate kind of messages to open doors. However, when we approach the car in steps number 1 and 2, we have observed that there are many sensors on the periphery of a car. And one of them was, luckily enough for us, was part of the clean side of the CAN network that was also connected to the door controller. So without overcoming any security mechanism, we were able to gain access to the car cabin. So these types of attacks are motivated by property theft, getting access to the car cabin to steal either something inside or, more importantly and more often, the vehicle itself. Second area I want to mention is firmware over-the-air update. That is a very good thing, saving OEMs a lot of money for recalls. It offers the opportunity to update the car during its lifetime, during the 15 years when the car will be on the road, and the OEM can further update features, maybe fix functional bugs, and deploy security patches without an expensive recall. However, the firmware over the update for all ECUs in the car involve many steps between the FOTA server and each individual ECUs. So what we do, we test and we follow the firmware package from the source to the very end. It has to go over several different communication channels. First, the internet to very often a cellular provider or your home Wi-Fi, where your car is connected. There is a FOTA orchestrator in the car, an ECU responsible for distributing individual update files to individual ECUs. And then in many cases, the update has to go over the diagnostic protocol over CAN. And that has been around for several years. And one of the less important ECUs might have a weakness in its security access function. So our target is to capture this firmware package, find a weakness somewhere along the way, and reprogram an ECU. Main motivation for this is very often, or most often, to modify performance. As a third group, during development and necessary ports, debug and diagnostic ports, and during our testing, we are making sure that they are either disabled properly in production or secured with a strong enough security mechanism. Debug ports, from their nature, they always come with an elevated privileges, either very low level, such as JTAG, UART, sending a log of what the ECU is doing, how it's booting. Very often these come with tier 2, with the chip, and they might not be seen by a tier 1 as a problem, and they might be even hard to change from a tier 1. So long story short, we're analyzing, and we have seen over the past years many debug or diagnostic ports left open or with a weak security mechanism. At this level, of course, debug ports offer a lot of access. For instance, change the memory content on the fly, reprogram the chip on the memory map level. However, that's a little bit time-consuming to rewrite or modify a particular function of, say, airbag controller or your door controller. All right. So with that, we're getting to the fourth section, fourth part of our webinar today, with Outlook and key recommendations. With that, let me pass the word back to Eliel to walk you through the rest. Oh, it's me. Sorry. So the Outlook. I have one more slide to go. The outlook, what we did not cover yet in our presentation. It is the near future. Vehicles are getting more and more connected. V2X technologies will very likely cover the emerging 5G technology. And in our laboratory, we are ready for that. We are building a 5G cell for testing not only telecommunications, but also car-to-X communication. Our cell, our 5G setup is flexible enough to cover the global market, enabling us to test vehicles built for Japanese markets or their components, communication units or telematic boxes, if you want, from all around the globe, as well as supporting all the 5G features that you may think of. And with that, we are coming to recommendations. What would we tell the OEMs and tier ones to do?
Yeah, that's correct. Many thanks, Michal. So, as mentioned at the beginning, but also through the presentation or go through from Michal, is that we are actually working very close with many OEMs and suppliers. And this has helped us to gain significant insights about how processes within the companies are running, how technology is looking like. And with that, we are able to actually share also today with the community a few key recommendations based on the experiences that we have done or that we have gone through in the past months and years. So the first thing is address cybersecurity fundamentals. So really harden and protect the core assets of a company, really focus on testing on a consequent basis, establish automation for defense services. So this is something that we encourage our clients to work on. The second recommendation is creating a security and privacy by design culture. So security shall not be something that is considered at the end of a life cycle or in between. The security teams shall be involved in the entire life cycle of a product from the very beginning, to ensure that the architecture is considered, to ensure that the security framework is considered, to ensure that the new regulations that are on the horizon are also applied from the very beginning. So this is also a key recommendation. The third one is to enable cross-functional collaboration. So we do see many automotive companies where one department is working in the area of the backend and saying, okay, whatever is going to telematics is not our business anymore. So it's the other department that is responsible. And we do believe that it's very important to bring those teams together, to work close together, to enable the cross-functional collaboration, to ensure really a good interplay and a good product that is resilient against cyber attacks at the end of the day. And of course, last but not least, the last years have shown that supply chain security is a big topic. So we need to extend security to the wider ecosystem that we are working with. So software developers, partners, suppliers, all of them contributing to the value chain. We need to ensure that we are applying the same cybersecurity level for them as well to identify the risk on time, to react on the risks also in time, and to ensure that we are not disrupting the business continuity. With that, we would like, first of all, again, to say thank you for the opportunity for being here and giving you a look and feel about the topics that we are dealing with within our Cyber Fusion Center and Cyber Garage. Really a topic that we are working on with a lot of passion and a lot of projects that we have also in the pipeline. Feel free to connect with us also beyond this webinar on LinkedIn, via mail, to connect on security topics, to have an exchange on the reports that we have done, or our key findings. We are really open for that, as we believe that sharing knowledge within the community is bringing forward anyone, especially in an industry where we always have to be one step ahead in order to face sophisticated cyber attacks. So with that, we would hand over back to the organizers to open the floor for Q&A. So we will share our cameras also in a minute, so that you can see that it's not only empty talk that we are talking about when speaking about the Cyber Garage. It's real. It's something that you can smell. It's something that you can see. It's something that you can hold in your hand, so that you guys can also get a look and feel regarding that.
Thanks a lot, Eliel and Michal, for the great presentation. And we have a lot of questions. And the first question is, what kind of defensive techniques do you advise to minimize the risk of ransomware attacks and supply chain attack?
Yeah, Dirk, I think that we are talking about the ransomware there. So let me take this one. So with regards to the with the offboard part of the vehicle, I would say that here advising is to make sure that all the inputs are sanitized properly, to make sure that basically any malicious attempt, or for instance, let me take the car sharing business as a location, as a good use case, can be detected early in case of, like, let's say, financial benefit and so on. So implement specific security operations use cases to alter that. But I have to say that from the ransomware perspective on the vehicles themselves, what is really key is to ensure integrity, and that the question is very well put on how to basically prevent this from the supply chain. So what we typically ask for is, we would like to see from tier ones to provide some evidence of the hygiene themselves. Are you doing source code review? Do you have a golden image available? Are you doing periodic security testing engagements on your final product, right? Sometimes it's easier said than done, because you don't only have the embedded software, but you have the embedded hardware. And as many of, I guess, the audience knows, today it's kind of pointless in a sense that regardless of how many embedded software features you put onto the onboard side, from the security perspective, they are still worthless if you don't have the embedded hardware security supporting them with the hardware security module and so on. So what we are always trying to figure out is, first of all, what is the geography that this particle ECU or this component comes from or is intended for use? There is a huge difference, believe it or not. I think that majority of the people on the call know it. It's a huge difference if the component is intended for the European, Chinese, US, or other market like Latin America, for instance. What we see is we see huge differences, and I don't want to offend anybody right now, but in the approach to the tier ones, the OEMs, into the due diligence to the different regions. So I have to say we see a lot of discrimination across the regions with regards to the cybersecurity maturity. So that's one. Second thing is we do have from our engagements, we do have some use cases which we cannot obviously disclose details, but of a potential ransomware which is harder to mitigate than the other, specifically coming from the radio frequency engagements, GPS and GSM location triangulation adjustments, to name a few, which can actually lead to very unexpected behavior in the area of car sharing, proper detection of location, basically attempting for the vehicle to know where it is. And for this particular area, what we typically suggest is make your security requirements for the ECUs and for your embedded software accounting with these potential cases, because it can easily put you out of business. It can easily put you out of the comfort zone, in a sense that there can be, let's say, a decline in trust in the particle OEM's brand. And with properly defined security requirements and expectations at the end, it is quite easy, and it will help the OEMs to easily filter tier ones which are not able to meet the specific expectations. It's a very good question, but a very large one to answer. And maybe just to close off the to close off this question, we are also very often confronted, and that this accounts for the premium OEM brands as well, that they are promised a certain feature to be locked down in a certain way. And in the end, it is about the level of trust, basically either the debugging interface or end of line, end of production line interface to basically remediate some of the issues. And we just simply can realize during the security testing or during the assurance that this has not been the case. And then our advice towards the supplier management ransomware indicated issues is that if we can do it in an isolated and, let's say, friendly environment, then the people outside can do it as well. And with that, as a closing thought, I, again, not pointing fingers, not want to be offensive to anybody, but we see a more and more increasing threat coming from the insiders themselves. With the introduction of specific defensive technologies, of MACsec, PKI distribution between the ECUs, which do have a higher computational power, maturity, meaning that they can accommodate more, they can validate algorithms and integrity faster, and so on and so forth. We still do see the insiders as becoming a big threat, disclosing some of the IP which might not be fully cooked. And we had numerous cases in the past where we had the tier ones and the OEMs reacting to our, let's say, final reports or the final results of our, like, from where did you get this information? This is like highly confidential. And we were saying it's posted on one of the major forums to how to tweak your car, how to tune your car, how to replace a head unit of your car. I know that for majority or some of the participants of the call, you may say, well, it's not possible for our vehicles because we have a unique identity and so on. But this may actually affect you at some point as well, because simply the more secrets that are carried out of the development cycle and brought out by the insiders, that can be a big threat. So what I would like to emphasize here is that we see, and it touches the supplier management topic quite a lot, is we basically see quite an increase in a demand for like threat intelligence and also incident response capabilities, not just security testing, but basically demand for services like, what are we going to do if we suddenly realize that the new model year of a certain vehicle is being either stolen or compromised in higher numbers, without us really understanding the key reason for that. So sorry maybe for a lengthy answer. It's not an easy question to answer. It's quite sizable, the answer from different angles, but I hope that I at least was able to quench the basic first for the answer, and happy to follow up if you reach out to us on the private emails. I'm happy to share more or schedule a call where we can go through this topic in detail, sharing extensive expertise and so on. I think it's always best to enrich the community and make the world a better place.
Thank you, Thomas, for the great answer. Then we will switch to the next question. I think you already answered this, and for the contact, you can reach our presenters. You can see this on the last slide. But the question was, does Accenture have a cyber garage in the USA? Who would be the contacts?
That's a very good one. So we are actually building one at the moment right now, because and that's a spot on. Up to now, we were traveling people to the US. We didn't have the right set of we had the right set of capabilities in the US, but we didn't have the right space. And as you know, the US work regime is a bit different than we have in the Europe. So typically in the US, you get employed in one place, but then you spend your week traveling across the rest of the US to basically accommodate the needs of your clients. But we are actually currently building one. And we hope to actually replicate the capability which we currently have in Prague, in the Czech Republic, in the US. And it became more and more urgent with the current things happening around the world, like COVID-related increased travel costs and other factors, new regulations published that basically we really want to we really felt the need to replicate this capability. So yes, this is coming up, and I hope that it's going to be also announced soon as a public statement on the Accenture web pages.
Thank you very much. And then I will combine three next questions from the same person. What is the oldest model year vehicle that has been tested in your garage? The first question. The second one, have any diesel vehicles been tested in the garage? And the third, how many pre-release vehicles have been tested in the garage?
It's a good question. So I'm pretty sure that there was model year 20 tested inside our garage. I'm positive we have tested model year 19, but that was a diesel car at a client site. And I think the reason why we didn't put it in the garage was mechanical. It didn't go through the door.
Yeah, and to add to that, so basically we are quite equipped to test prototype vehicles as well. So for instance, the model year 20 vehicle, which was tested, was actually tested already in the year before it is supposed to be happening. So frankly speaking, we are currently testing the model year 2021 components, not the entire vehicle yet, but the 2021 components in our lab. But as you can imagine, I think that you can also see a bit of a pattern. So what we would love to do, and that's not really the issue on our side, I guess, but it's a paradigm shift which needs to happen in the industry. We would love to be able to test the vehicles and the architectures earlier than that. But simply the market and the complexity of the development cycle of the model years, it is not yet ready for that to some extent. So what we've come up with Michal is that we would really like to be able to test B samples already, to be able to provide feedback not to the current model year, but basically 2 years before the model year is being released. So with different level of success, I would say, at different OEMs, we are slowly starting to get there. So I would put the answer in this sense with regards to the model years. With regards to the components themselves, we are already involved with some of the OEMs with the components with regards to the model year 2023. When it comes to the full vehicles, we are not fully there in terms of availability of the vehicle. I mean, it's not just entirely Accenture's problem, but I think it's the entire industry's problem. We would really like to get the vehicles much earlier in their pilot stages. So again, I would apply the same regime as with the components. We would like to see them 2 years ahead before they hit the road. Ideally, at least, for instance, from the vehicle bus perspective. To expand the answer, currently, I would be very frank and open with our key issues. We do have large issues with security testing of the Ethernet-based buses. It's becoming more and more intensive, and we want to get and offer the best of breed, but we are facing numerous challenges caused by tier ones, caused by unavailability of the samples themselves, ranging from everything between not having documentation for certain Ethernet switch gateways and really the entire system on chip components, up to the point that we don't really have the good clarity on how the Ethernet security gateways should implement the protection mechanisms, including like VLAN hopping attacks, let's say firewalling rules on the private VLANs detection, potential like authentication on the Ethernet layer, including the MACsec, which I was mentioning. So there are all kinds of factors which are currently preventing us to be a bit more futuristic, I would say, even though we are aiming there, and I think we will succeed. So that was the first part of the question. The second part of the question was, if I remember correctly, and I hope that I didn't get lost. So please, in case Dirk, I'm losing this, just remind me. Was about how like what is basically the improvement plan, right? Or Dirk, if you can remind me, that would be really happy.
Yes.
No, the question was whether we have tested which model years vehicles we have tested in our garage, whether one of them was diesel, and how many pre-production vehicles we have tested.
Right.
Exactly.
So the diesel thing. I'm not sure where this question leads to, but let me try to.
Yeah, I wonder how that changed our approach. I would approach a diesel car in the same way as a gas car or electric car.
Right. So but that's that in that sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have designed both of the cyber labs, so the cyber garages, with enough air conditioning to be able to accommodate both the diesel cars and like gasoline cars, and in that sense. So honestly, because we are serving globally, we don't really see the trend of the European companies that diesel is necessarily bad. I mean, the second aspect of that is that we are not only testing vehicles like which normal person would drive, but we are also testing tractors, harvesters, like and other large agricultural vehicles, which basically do not have they are stuck with the diesel engine for a purpose, right? And we don't see that reflection in terms of the environmental regulation that much. We are equipped to actually handle the pre-production cars with these conditions in the laboratory downstairs, even if it's like 3 stories below. So we have, and it's visible above Michael's head. We do have quite an over-engineered air conditioning with enough like section power to change the air and accommodate this. And we so far basically so that's one thing to answer, and I'm not sure if it answered the question in its entirety. I tried to cover the scope which I saw. And the last thing is how many pre-production cars we had in the lab so far. I'll try to cut it as short as possible. So we've basically we own this capability for the past 5 years. It took us a bit of time to put Accenture on the market, and basically since then we've had 3 flagship model year technologies in the lab in a pre-production fashion, with different levels of masking, with different levels of features being prevented, being hidden from which we were basically asked to be hidden from the wider audience. But we, needless to say, we do have enough experience to handle this type of operation, both from, let's say, confidentiality and also, let's say, physical prevention of certain features and vehicles to be site, starting from 2-factor authentication into the physical premises to CCTV evaluation, to specific outdoor testing windows in specific let's say night hours, and masking requirements from which were coming from the OEMs or from tier ones. So I think that I have to say, I think we have enough confidence that we are able to support even the more stringent requirements here.
Thanks a lot. We have still a few questions. And the next very good question: how do you ensure supply chain security for all the components that go in a car?
Okay, so another big topic. How do we? So we are trying to help holistically here, because the answer is not that simple. What we are trying to do is we are trying to help the OEMs holistically during the entire production cycle. Starting, and I'm gonna start with the more intelligent ECUs, let's say, having a good hygiene, understanding which ECUs are being sent. Do they have private keys already imprinted? Are the public keys basically properly are these keys actually available in the central repository for further, let's say, reconfiguration and dissemination of the OEM specific either firmware or purpose? So this is one. We are trying to help on the factory, on the manufacturing level, and on the processes itself. It also, as you can imagine, having a good track of the parts which are shipped to your manufacturing plant also helps with the traceability of the individual parts, saving revenue from, let's say, repairs, preventing from fake parts to be distributed onto the market, and also preventing theft from the plants themselves. So I think this is one of the cases how we are trying to help holistically.
Yeah, so if I may comment on that, it's I think the regulation in the cybersecurity engineering standard 21434, it cascades from OEMs to everybody in the supply chain. So OEMs are part of their RFQ package. They require cybersecurity engineering process. Tier 1s require on Tier 2s. They're showing their documenting their due diligence on cybersecurity engineering process. Granted, there are, at some point, you will reach in your supply chain suppliers that will simply say no, because they're either too small and it doesn't make sense for them to get audited and implement these processes. Then you go one level back, one level up, and make a risk assessment. So the cybersecurity engineering is by nature risk-based. And there are questionnaires. There is a process that can be implemented for a tier 1 to assess a small garage, 6-people company that are supplying a niche component in their car and assess cybersecurity at that level. So this is our recommendation. This is part of our consulting services that we can offer to support supply chain cybersecurity.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and maybe just to add to that, and sorry, I just realized after like 20 minutes of speaking that my camera was not enabled. So I think that now you should even see my face. Needless to say, we are also trying to help with regards to the supplier management to do a bit of consulting also on the embedded hardware parts, because we are seeing a trend where very often a common hardware or embedded hardware platform is being selected for multiple functions. And what we typically see with Michal is that features are not disabled properly. There is only either they are completely neglected or they're only disabled on a software level, but in the end, the hardware is still operational. So we were basically even trying to provide holistically across the entire spectrum an embedded systems consulting in the entire in the entire embedded systems hardware space. So we do have significance like embedded hardware design experience. We are even like creating our own security testing tools, meaning we are manufacturing our own PCBs in small batches. And we are trying from the evaluation of the market, of the key players, to try to basically support or equip the OEMs with enough security requirements, or let's put with enough insight, so they can they know what they should be looking for from their tier 1s. And we are also supporting tier 1s to basically be able to come up with features which not just give market advantage, but which are significant, which are making them significantly stronger from the cybersecurity maturity perspective.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next question, how likely would be the possibility of someone being able to hack into a car due to a specific software update?
From our experience, that is really that depends on the car. We have seen several implementations of firmware over-the-air update implementation. Some rely on wrapping the update process in an encrypted channel very often, and I think that's a good practice. The firmware itself is an encrypted and signed package wrapped in a encrypted communication channel. Then the likelihood is not big, but as I mentioned, it's OEM specific, it's implementation specific.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
And
yeah, Dirk, maybe if I can add to this one more perspective, we also see a trend. We see two trends. Either the companies are trying to make their own firmware over-the-air system from the ground up, specifically tailored for their vehicles and their ECUs, or we very often see usage of third-party solutions. And obviously there is a cost factor. I don't want to exactly name the examples, but I think Michal covered very well the perspective of the OEM specific approach when it comes to using a third-party solution, like an existing solution where you're expecting to have multi-tenant environment. We were fortunate enough to have significant engagement in that space, and we can confirm that there are a lot of gaps with regards to firmware integrity, with regards to tenant isolation as well. With the tenant isolation, we do expect that that's obviously not a problem if you do have an OEM tailored approach. With the integrity of the files being transported, I think that is also somehow mitigated. But then there is still the onboard dissemination, and I think that with Michal we can easily tell you guys that there we see major differences, OEM from OEM. How well and how securely is then the final firmware over-the-air product disseminated, unpacked to, for instance, the less equipped and the less computational power happy ECUs. And I think that this is going to be in the future automatically resolved by lowering the number of the ECUs, which I think that everybody is turning towards. But for now, if I would really state today and the experience coming, I don't know, 2 years back, these are basically the major threats and the outlook which we have across the entire industry.
Thank you. And we have 2 last questions. And one question is, most labs use open source tooling of some sort. Do you also use? And if so, does Accenture do anything to give back to the open source ecosystem or support the people behind the tools?
Michal, do you want to take that one? Or?
Sure. So to have flexible tools, we use platforms as everybody else that you can see on Black Hat, Raspberry Pi, and Linux-based tools. And I believe that our colleagues are also submitting updates to some of those tools. So we are contributing as well as using.
Yeah. So maybe I would take this from 2 angles. One is the hardware side. We are developing specific embedded hardware for the sake of our own testing, but that's basically our own IP. But at the same time, we are contributing a lot to the community. I think that if you contact us directly, I would be able to share the specific work products which we were actually allowed by our legal teams to share externally, where we contributed to the community, and you would be able to use these tools. We start, I have to admit that we start to be, everything in our world starts to be very, very reverse engineering focused. So if I would roll back 2 years back, majority of our IP, which we are trying to get back to the community, is with regards to the reverse engineering, specific processes, specific triage, and so on. And these assets are either given to the community through GitHub submissions, or they are provided by Accenture approved tools, or we are essentially publishing them as Accenture work products for availability. So I think that to match the good balance between the IP, the legal, and sorry for the word, other shenanigans, I think we are trying our best to make the world a better place. So I don't really feel like that we are a type of company which is only a leech and doesn't share anything back. But I think where the majority of our contribution stands is with regards to reverse engineering, as Michal was saying, and I can only second that. The rest of the tool set is really the most basic tool set that you would be able to find on the market and which everybody is using. Thank
you. And we have very last question for today. This From your point of view, does physical security attacks falls under cybersecurity attack category?
Definitely,
Well,
yes.
yeah. You can't have one without the other. As I mentioned, very nicely designed secure EE network, segregated into clean and dirty side, if you want to call them that, by a security gateway, which has a sole purpose of separating the two, was easily overcome because the wires of the clean side were exposed. So I guess that gives you a quick answer. Yes, at least evaluating the attack surface caused by flaws in physical security is definitely in scope. Then it's a matter of the type of attack you do, whether you connect to the wires and send signals, or whether you take a hammer and break a window.
Yeah, and just quickly to add to that, there is also a large safety aspect to think about. So with regards to, for instance, our research vehicle behind Michal, you know that, and that's not a public secret, that you can you can secure the Tesla vehicle with your own PIN, which is the only thing basically that stands with you, which you know. And all the other OEMs, depending on the approach, they obviously have a different feeling for that, because if somebody is really determined to steal your car, for instance, he will use any physical security, but also I would say other like life-threatening measures to do that. So we see the physical security as a natural part of our work, and we are treating the vehicles as such.
Yeah, and in addition to what Michal and Thomas just mentioned, actually we are also working together with a big OEM in the field of identity access management for connected cars. So our teams were working side by side together with the client in order to develop those systems for mobile platforms and environments to access the cars, working on the technology that is behind there, especially also with regards to key management and certificate management usage. So this is also an angle where we have a proven track record, not only in terms of testing that we are doing here in Prague, but also where we are sitting on the other side with the client from the very beginning of a life cycle to ensure that this vulnerability does not get exploited, and whenever it gets exploited, that the impact at the end of the day is as low as possible and does not impact the operations of a car or vehicle.
Thank you very much for the great answers, and also, of course, for to the community. Thank you very much for the great questions. I think it was very interesting discussion right now, and yeah, thanks again for being with us, and hopefully see you again by the next webinar. Bye bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.